scientists. So today I am so excited because this is the first day that we are going to use our new science book. So you want to make sure we have 2 science books. You want to make sure that you have the big blue one today, okay? And then also you want to make sure that you have our animal classification graphic organizer because we are going to read and take notes together, okay? So as I'm sharing my screen with you, make sure you have all of your materials ready to roll. And we are going to talk about today animal classification, okay? And there are 2 categories for animal classification. We're going to just talk about one today. So go ahead and turn your page to 301. And the question that we are going to think about today and what we're going to dig in deep to today is how can we classify vertebrates? Say that word with me, vertebrates. You might not even know what a vertebrate is, but that's okay. That's why we are working together today in science. So go ahead and turn to page 302. Okay, and let's see if we can dig in deep to what a vertebrate is. Have a backbone. What do you have in common with fish, alligators, frogs, birds, and seals? Why, it's a backbone. This says, as you read these 2 pages, find and underline the definition of vertebrate. All right, are we ready? Animals that have a backbone are called vertebrates. There are many kinds of vertebrates. Frogs, birds, snakes, and tigers are all vertebrates. Vertebrates live in many places. What would we underline? What's the definition of a vertebrate? Go ahead and underline that. All right, you should have underlined animals that have a backbone. So on our notes, right here where it says vertebrates, let's go ahead and write that is animals with a backbone. Or what do we call it? Sometimes it might be referred to as your spine. Okay, that would be a synonym for backbone. All right, let's look at our captions. Some boas live in thick forests. Their backbones let them curl up and stretch. Lions live in grasslands. Their young are called cubs. So we can look right here. We know that would be its spine or backbone. Okay, so we've accomplished our first thing today, which is to learn and understand what the word vertebrate means. So we know a vertebrate is an animal with a backbone. But as you may be wondering, what are all of these categories on our graphic organizer? Well, those are all the animal classifications of vertebrates. So today we are going to read about 3 of them and take some notes. So our first classification of a vertebrate is a what? A fish, right? So fish are vertebrates too. Fish are many sizes, shapes, and colors. Some fish are tiny. Other fish, such as the whale shark, are large. A whale shark can grow as long as a school bus. Fish take in oxygen through their gills and spend their whole lives in water. So as we're learning about each of the classifications, we're trying to kind of come up with a nice definition of what each classification means. And then we'll come up with some examples, okay? So a fish, what could we underline to help us know a fish is a fish? What would be a good definition in that first paragraph? Go ahead and underline a nice definition of a fish. We know fish are vertebrates, but what would be a definition of a fish? Take a minute and see if you can underline a nice sentence. All right, well, hopefully you are underlining, or you already have, fish take in oxygen through their gills and spend their whole lives in water. That is the true definition of a fish. So underneath fish, we are going to write just that. They, we're going to write take in oxygen through their gills. And then the most important second part is they spend their whole lives in the water. And let's underline that, their whole lives in water. Okay, so that is what's going to help us classify fish. We know fish are vertebrates, which means they have a backbone, but fish have to spend their whole life in the water and they breathe through their gills. Okay, so then let's come up with some examples of some fish. Let's go ahead and look at some of our photographs and read some of our captions. Oh, here's one of my favorite fish. Seahorse. Male seahorses carry eggs in a part of their body called a pouch. Okay, then we've got the bass. I'm sure some of you fishermen and fisherwomen have caught a bass before. This bass lives in fresh water. Like most kinds of fish, it lays eggs. Okay, so fish lay eggs. Let's look at our monkfish. This fish lives in the ocean where there is no light. So we've gotten 3 examples here. Let's go ahead and add those. So we've got a seahorse. Seahorse, sorry. We've got a bass. We've got a monkfish. What else could we add from that first paragraph? What's something else? Go ahead and see if you can underline one of the other examples of a fish. A whale shark. Okay, not a whale. A whale shark. Okay, guys? So that is our first example of a vertebrate, and the animal classification is fish. All right, let's go ahead and turn to the next page. Go ahead and turn to page 304. We are going to read about 2 more animal classifications, amphibians and reptiles. All right, and a lot of times these 2 types of animals are confused with each other. So we're going to read deep and figure out the difference between the 2 and some good examples. And then I'm going to send you off on your own to see if you can classify and tell the difference between amphibians and reptiles. All right, so we are on page 304 and we are reading along together. How are amphibians and reptiles different? Read on to learn about how these 2 or to learn about these two groups, sorry. And then we like to be active readers. As you read these 2 pages, draw circles around clue words that signal when things are being compared. So we can kind of just mention those. All right, first off is an amphibian. Say it with me, amphibian. Start life in water. Many amphibians move to land as they grow. Salamanders, toads, and frogs are amphibians. Like most other amphibians, frogs lay their eggs in water. When the eggs hatch, the tadpoles look like fish. Most amphibians have smooth, moist skin. Young amphibians have gills. Many adult amphibians have lungs. There is a lot of information in this. So let's kind of think about what we just learned. Where do amphibians start their life? They start their life in the water, right? So let's make sure we are finding our category amphibian, and we can put starts life in water. Okay, let's see, what else? Many amphibians move to land as they grow. So they start their life in the water, but they move to land as they grow. Okay, they do give us some examples, so we will add those at the end. Salamanders, toads, and frogs. Those are great examples of amphibians. Like most amphibians, what do? So they're giving us an example of what the frog does, but most amphibians, what? Lay their eggs in water. So let's add that one. When the eggs hatch, the tadpoles look like fish. Most amphibians have smooth, moist skin. Remember, you should be writing all this down. They have smooth, moist skin. What else? Let's see. Young amphibians have gills. Adult amphibians have lungs. So we could put the babies, and we could put equal. They have gills, right? Because they start their life out in water. So in a way, they're similar to what other animal? To fish, right? But then as they become adults, they have lungs, which is why they live on land, right? So then what were those examples? What were those examples? We've got toads, frogs, that's Olivia's worst, and salamanders. Those are all examples of amphibians, okay? So then we have reptiles, not to be confused with amphibians. That's a whole nother class of animal. So let's go ahead and read about that, and then I'm going to see how much you know about these two so that you can do the page on your own. Reptiles are animals with scales covering their bodies. Lizards and turtles are reptiles. Similar to amphibians, most reptiles hatch from eggs. A reptile breathes with lungs its whole life. And we know amphibians don't. They start breathing when they're young with their what? Their gills. Reptiles such as crocodiles that spend a lot of time in water must come up for air. So they can live in the water, but they have to come up to breathe. Okay, not like fish who can just stay underwater and breathe because they have gills, right? All right, so let's see. We've got reptiles. So this is our last bit of notes today that we are taking, and then I'm sending you off on your own to do this fun page over here. All right, so let's see. Reptiles are animals with scales covering their body. So let's go ahead and for reptiles, let's add scales cover their bodies. What else did we know? What else did we learn? Let's see. So they gave us some examples similar to amphibians. Oh, most reptiles hatch from eggs. Okay, what else? They breathe with lungs. Their whole life, right? Which means they must come up for air. All right, what are some examples of reptiles? What did they say? Turtles, lizards, and then, oh, what was that scary one? Crocodiles. Okay, so make sure you are hanging on to these notes. We have learned a lot today, my friends. We have learned about the animal classification vertebrates. And we know vertebrates means you have a, what? Backbone, animals with a backbone. Are we a vertebrate? I would say we are. What would we fall under? What category? I think we're a fish, a reptile, an amphibian? I don't think so. I don't think we've learned about our class yet. All right, so we've learned about 3 different classifications. We've learned about fish, which is pretty easy to decipher. But then we learned about 2 that sometimes are easily confused with each other, reptiles and amphibians. We took lots of notes on how we can identify each one, and we came up with some examples. High five on that. So now I am sending you off on your own to complete page 305. You're going to do it in your workbook first, and then you are going to post your answers, okay? So let's look what they say to do. Read the facts on each trading card. So we've got some trading cards here. Write in A for what? Amphibian. Or in R for reptile. We don't need to worry about this part. Okay, so you are going to figure out, let's number it, what an alligator is. That's number 1. So you're going to either write A for amphibian or R for reptile here. Then we've got a newt. That's going to be number 2. We've got a gecko, which is number 3. And then we've got the mud puppy, which is number 4. So for 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're going to read, you're going to look at your notes, and you are going to either write A for what? Amphibian, or R for reptile, right? And then you are going to post that in your discussion post. That will be a grade, okay? All right, you did a fabulous job on vertebrates today. So we will pick up tomorrow. We will talk about the other 2 tomorrow and learn a little bit more about vertebrates. All right, have a great day. Bye.